So, you had something for me. You said what? Okay, so for people, listen, between you and I in particular, and our, friendship or whatever, I've definitely always been more leaning towards and willing to accept wild ideas way more so than you.
Some might call you a conspiracy theorist.
You definitely used to have been able to, definitely.
Nut job. Paranormal.
Okay, hold on. Whoa, hold on.
Investigator.
I mean, you definitely used to be able to, for sure. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but not really as much anymore because I just don't see the level of intelligence in the people in power required to carry out some of the things that conspiracy theorists suggest they're doing.
You used to drive around for hours at a time looking for a dogman.
Hashtag dogman.
Hashtag dogman.
Every episode of Lost in the Dark is hashtag dogman. This is Dogman. So, Dogman is a major influence for this podcast. Dogman, Sasquatch, ghosts, I don't necessarily think they are... I don't know if they're dead people or not, but I know that there's something going on. There's definitely been... there are, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, there is intelligent, sentient alien life in the universe, whether or not it's ever been to
discovered
Earth.
To Earth.
Not discovered, but whether or not it's ever been to Earth. Whether extraterrestrial life forms have ever been here, in particular, is something that in recent years especially, I've been heavily questioning. Because there's, I don't really agree with mainstream geology, I guess, in terms of timeline of cultural, of human beings with the ability to have culture and be at the level of building buildings for themselves and things like that. Current understanding says that that's only been around for 15,000 years or so, I think. And I don't buy that. I think it's been around much, much longer. Normal human life. I think it's been around much, much longer. I think there's plenty of evidence to show that there was a major colonized civilization active in North America and then was destroyed by a massive asteroid impact followed by a flood, which washed literally everything away.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually recently learned about a massive asteroid impact that a lot of people don't know about that's fairly close to home for all of us Michiganders out here.
Really?
In the basin of, I believe it's Lake Ontario. One entire side of it is the result of an asteroid impact, the same size that is so well preserved out in Arizona.
That's the one I'm talking about.
That's the one that you're talking about. They happened roughly at about the same time in Earth's history.
Interesting. Wow, I didn't know about that one. That's cool. Yeah, and there's so there's a guy out there who I've listened to a few times on Joe Rogan's podcast and stuff, and yes, he did lend some belief at a point in time to the theory about 2012 and all that, which kind of labeled him a quack,
I'm still not convinced that the world continued after 2012.
Well, I never read... He wrote a book about it. I never read his book, but my understanding of that whole situation was that, yes, the part... what the Mayan calendar ended was everybody was saying, yes, that's true. The part of the Mayan calendar that we were in, and what everybody liked to leave out, was that there was another part starting immediately after. According to that calendar, we went from, the age of... it's based on the constellations, but we went to or from the age of Aquarius to the different one or something like that. So, yeah, it ended, but it also started a new one immediately after, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I get it. But anyway, this guy's name's Graham Hancock. I've heard him talk specifically about the asteroid impacts and stuff like that. He's also found, without question, and he's not the only one, doing this stuff, looking into this stuff, but he's found weathering on the pyramids, on the Sphinx, that shows it to be much older than current accepted geological dating.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's definite, without question, it has water erosion on it that could only come from a certain point in time, and according to the current understanding, that point in time, that area was desert. So how could it be? So... yeah, there's definitely some. We don't have a full understanding, I don't think, yet of the human species timeline. I think we were much more advanced at a much earlier point than 15,000 years ago. which I think is because I don't believe that aliens built pyramids. Because I've seen, dude, there was a show on Sci-Fi once. It was like a Mythbusters, but about UFOs and things like that. Can't remember what it was called. But they did an episode about the fucking pyramids, dude. I swear to Christ, they came to Michigan in Lapeer, right out by Flint and Davison. Yeah. They went to fucking Lapeer, Michigan. There was a dude out there who had a bunch of pieces of wood and rope and was able to build a pulley system.
It was able to show how you can move such large blocks without...
Hook up a, like, whatever the fuck, thousands and thousands of ton stone brick just as big as... literally looked like something he pulled right off the pyramid. It looked just as big as one of them. He was able to move the whole fucking thing with one hand.
Yeah.
Because he had it set up on this pulley system thing.
Yeah.
A guy here in Lapeer, Michigan. So, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, well... There's no aliens. There's no room anymore for aliens to be in that theory because we have a perfectly reasonable way for the human beings at the time did it.
Doesn't exclude aliens. That just proves that humans at the time had the means and probable know-how to build that.
To build that structure. That's
Precisely.
The only part that's, yeah. And, yeah, going the other way now, though, you know, once you take into consideration the location, the exact, precise location of where most of the pyramids are built, then that part, I mean, I guess, yeah, you could still... I still don't really have an issue with human beings having come up with that, but...
All across the world at about the same time.
That's the part.
Most pyramids built in some sort of fashion, orienting themselves all across the world to the constellation of Orion.
In perfect order.
Somewhat south west of the Giza Plateau where the pyramids stand today, there is a much lesser known monolithic site that is one of the oldest known to man and drastically outdates Stonehenge. But it's constructed in much the same way. Now, when most people hear monolithic, they're imagining Stonehenge, these massive, tall boulders that stretch like 3 to 6 meters into the air. These come up to your knees. It was still a ritual, spiritual site that was created and dated back to a population of humans that existed long before the Egyptian Empire, any of the pharaohs, any of that we have very little information on, except for a few cave drawings, and this one particular monolithic site that's just stranded out in the desert. It has gate points that line up perfectly with the spring and fall equinoxes, rock points that line up perfectly with the summer and winter solstices, and more specifically, and this goes back to the pyramids, alignment, and everything else, the stones in the middle, if you chronologically backdate where the stars were in the sky, when you stand facing it from the viewpoint that the rocks line you up to, there are 3 stones that line up perfectly with the 3 stars of Orion's belt. All across the globe, this phenomenon, and this isn't to suggest that aliens had any intervention in it, but it is very curious that all across the globe, from early human civilization, one of the oldest roots that we can find to a more advanced, sustained, spiritual group of humans was obsessed with one section of the sky, which a lot of other texts, especially Egyptian texts, say that we are Egyptian and South American, what am I trying to say, Mayan texts say that we are descendants of gods from Orion.
What the fuck? Hang on, that thought never crossed my mind. It's like, yeah, of course these things are all over the world, built roughly around the same time. That doesn't mean aliens, but why are they all built to the same exact constellation? Because these are all different cultures that worship different gods. The
In both-
constellations meant different things to all of them.
And yet every culture saw Orion as
Whoa.
more or less the same exact thing. He was known as a giant and a hunter. Almost every cultural depiction of Orion. And this is probably passed on from very early humans who interpreted the sky and had the most significance in their belief structure based on that constellation. And that traveled through the lineage of humanity as it spread across the globe. But then you have to ask yourself, why is this one constellation? How did that idea of this constellation, it's one of the easiest ones to spot in the sky. That might be one reason.
Well,
but why does that exist in the folklore of so many different ancient human civilizations?
Yeah.
To an extent that they erect these massive structures aligned, and when looked at from above, which none of them could do at the time,
right,
when looked at from above, are aligned mathematically precisely in the same proportions that the stars would have appeared to them from Orion's belt. And this is all over the globe, in the northern and southern hemispheres, on 4 different continents.
Don't some of the pyramids, like in Machu Picchu, like line up with pyramids from on another continent, like in a perfect line?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is really weird. but let's take aliens out of the picture.
They're already out. They're out. Because, okay, real quick.
If you throw aliens into the picture, then suddenly you have this, everything lines up in these perfect triangles, and you can draw a lot of conclusions from that. But if you take everything out, let's say that it's just because of the climate and geology of the Earth, that it makes sense that these cultures and civilizations settled down in ways that they more or less ended up forming this perfect line.
Okay. Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's really interesting. But so yeah, between us, I've definitely always been more leaning on the side of those things. Whereas, like you said, like when we were talking yesterday for a minute, you said you believe that everything is random happenstance of atoms coming together and doing all this stuff, and basically...
Not random at all. I'm a determinist.
Right, determinism, right.
Everything is based on a cause and effect relationship in Earth. This conversation was a predetermined aspect of the universe purely based on the physical reaction between atoms and molecules and particles that have existed for billions and billions of years.
And if there was ever a way to put all of that into some sort of equation, you would then be able to know the outcome of everything.
Using a super
like
quantum computer.
Something that does not exist yet, people.
Something that quite possibly couldn't exist.
Yeah.
Because the amount of data required to record everything down to the quantum level mechanics that happen in between particles that we don't even know of at this point.
Right. Quantum particles we probably haven't even discovered yet.
So let's just assume that we have a computer, the God computer, that can hold all this information. Using that, you can easily write a script that can, at any point in time, backdate and show you exactly what happened, and move forward in time and show you exactly what will happen. Down to literally the
words we're saying.
The words that we're saying.
Yeah.
Because it can not predict, but it
knows,
will know.
It's not a prediction. Yeah.
Precisely the atoms that will move, that will force the air out of our mouths in the exact vibration patterns that forms the words that we're saying right now.
Yeah. That's where you're at.
That's where I'm at.
Right.
To me, that's my reality. That's the reality that I live in.
And now, to say, and now I attend to, it's such a weird thing, because it's like I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, it's like I don't want that to be true.
No,
but
no one wants that to be true. Everyone wants a choice. Everyone thinks that
we want free will.
The idea, I think, therefore I am.
But honestly, that's not even my biggest problem with it. It's the free will part of it. Yeah, okay. But what really bugs me is then nobody's responsible for their actions. Because they were always going to do that thing no matter what. They didn't really have control.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that part of it.
It's not to say that I don't blame a serial killer for murdering a bunch of people.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's the aspect of the philosophy that I don't like.
But it happened because it was predestined by the universe.
Right.
That is an unfortunate side effect.
Yeah, that's the one part of it that I don't really like. But, so, you've always been on that sort of side of things. And keep in mind, you and I, we were in college together. We took numerous, every philosophy or psychology class we could take together, we did. We went down, a good portion of our college life was spent in a car together, driving around, talking about these ideas.
We're still in the process of climbing out of this rabbit hole that we dug for ourselves long ago.
Over 10, or close to 10 years ago now, probably. Yeah. And I've always been on the opposite side. Not opposite, but on a different side of it at least. And I've always leaned more towards the, not extreme, but not the paranormal, I guess. Paranormal, if you break that word down to what it really means, not just ghosts.
You're less cynical than I am.
That too.
When it comes to, especially when you talk about paranormal, abnormal things,
yeah,
being open to ideas of that
extravagance and
possibilities, and extravagant possibilities, you're more open to that. Whereas let's go back to aliens coming to Earth. The probabilities of an intelligent civilization spanning across the galaxy or from another galaxy into ours to single in on our one planet and visit this, knowing that we were there when laws of physics that we know today simply don't allow for anything like that to happen.
Right.
And why would a living intelligent being travel all that way to a planet that from its distant point, because of the way that light works, 1,000 light years away, they're looking at Earth 1,000 years in the past.
So there's no waves coming off of the planet. There's no radio transmissions happening.
There's nothing that would tell them that there was, in fact, intelligent or life at all on our planet.
They might have guessed their life because maybe they came up with the same predictions of a Goldilocks zone that we did. But that would be it. That would be it. It's at a point in a solar system where it could inhabit life. That's all they'd know.
Yeah.
That's all they'd know. So it's actually the conversations that you and I had back in the day about light travel and how that all works, and the fact that there's only a certain amount, there's only a radius that anything can really see us in, and in that radius there's not that much. There's mostly empty space, and what's there is likely not habitable at all. So it's our conversations about those things that got me to the point where I was yeah, there are definitely aliens in the universe, but have they ever been to Earth? Most likely not. Until I get a phone call from you yesterday saying, you know about the ancient alien thing? I go, of course. I watched. Even I think that show's quacky. I don't get on board with the TV show at all. So, I need more hard evidence than anything they've ever seen them provide. But when you call me and go, I've looked into something and I'm questioning my own thoughts about whether or not they've been here now, it makes me go, what? So, I'm interested.
Going down that rabbit hole, talking about pyramids existing all over the world, being built more or less at the same time throughout humanity, there are some lesser-known ones in China.
There's off the coast of Japan, they found some underwater.
A lot of them, especially the ones in China, there's a lot of mystery surrounding them, because the government doesn't allow anyone to actually explore them or to do any research to find out if they are man-made structures or if they are in fact just geological formations, which in some ways defy what we know about the way that a lot of rock formations actually happen. There are very few examples in the world
in
nature where rocks form in such a perfect shape to create pyramids that resemble the ones on the Giza Plateau. So, I don't want to say this idea that there are pyramids in a very unlikely place has been popping up since the 1950s or so. And it's reoccurring now, again, especially now that we have all the satellite technology and we actually have the ability to hop onto Google Earth and literally rotate our planet, which has been scanned by all of these satellites, and view it at any angle that we want to and zoom in as close as we want to. But we've found, dating back into the 50s, pyramids in Antarctica, by the South Pole. Stretched all out across this land are what researchers and scientists claim to be naturally formed mountains that resemble very much the shape and angles of the Giza Plateau pyramids. And more specifically, after going down this rabbit hole for a little while, because you can see how it's Antarctica, it's a glacial region. The geology and the way that things form in those areas is going to be drastically different than the normal things that we experience.
Yeah, it's in the jungle of China.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Going down a little bit further and doing my own research, I followed a thread that was pointing to a series of 3 structures like that are lined up in the same exact pattern as the 3 pyramids in the Giza Plateau, with the same mathematical distribution between them, in the same size orientation between them, matching up with the 3 stars of the Orion's Belt.
In Antarctica.
And then you begin to question, if these are man-made, when and how did these structures get made? That's an entirely uninhabitable zone that...
Has it ever been habitable?
250 million years ago.
Oh.
Back when the planet was... Back when the continents and the tectonic plates had come together to form one of the first supercontinents, Pangaea.
That's the last time the landmass of Antarctica was habitable. It was during Pangaea, basically.
More than likely. There could have been some warming periods and cooling periods, but the access and lack of land bridges to the South Pole makes...
There's no way to get there except by water.
Precisely. Icy water. Nonetheless, no matter what time of year you're going into it, your present-day technologies have trouble accessing the regions down there because of how treacherous it is to move through such icy, cold, glacial-filled waters.
Yeah. And, where'd they get the bricks?
So, that's another point. Moving materials down there, or finding the materials down there that are large enough and plentiful enough to make man-made structures, scientists all across the world claim that these are made by natural events, and it's a natural occurrence to have this perfect triangular shape that's flat on all 4 sides with a perfectly square base.
No. I mean, growing up in school, we were taught that, perfect right angles, almost don't exist in nature. It's extraordinarily rare for a perfect 90-degree angle to show up almost anywhere in nature, especially in terms of a rock formation.
90-degree angles are used mostly just for math, because we can base 2 points.
But, okay, so here's... okay, So Pangea. Let's just, for shits and giggles for a minute, say that everything was built on Pangea.
Before the Cretaceous period.
Sure. I'm saying for shits and giggles right now, alright? What if that happened? Then the location of everything, how would that have affected their relation in line with the stars?
Well, that's what I would like to know, and that's what I've been trying to find more evidence of. Trying to track down the exact spot on a glacial continent to where it was 250 million years ago is difficult, especially to figure out how that would align precisely with the stars today.
Today? Okay, so, for however, let's say now for however long the continents have been how they are now, okay? For that entire time period, everything that's built lines up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably at least working within that time period. There probably wasn't an intelligent species here before the Cretaceous period.
Potentially, more than likely not.
Okay, so then...
None that we've discovered.
But the issue with that is, okay, well then if there's one in Antarctica, then how the fuck did they do that?
And that's where more research is needed.
So...
researchers and scientists who claim that this is a natural phenomenon.
Yeah,
and there are
up with that?
There are some aspects of a lot of these features in Antarctica that make it look more natural. But my argument is, if it had been man-made, over 250 million years ago, the buildup of sediments and the changes in weathering that would happen on these objects...
Dude, even 100,000 years ago. You don't gotta go back 250 million for something like that.
Antarctica is a perfect place to preserve things like that because it doesn't build up sediments in the same way that the rest of the world does. So as this continent drifts off from Pangea and settles at the southern pole of our planet, anything that would have been made by some intelligent civilization or some intelligent creature or even some landmasses could be preserved over that time.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'd be interested to see, digging a little bit deeper into some of these land formations, how deep they go and what's actually inside of them. Because if they
we don't even know we don't actually know why the fuck the pyramids were even built. Growing up when I was a kid, I remember people saying it was like an elaborate tomb, but now they're not even sure about that because some of them have never had any evidence or any sort of burial or bodies or anything in them.
Have you heard about the scientists that did all the research on the shape of pyramids and the different fields that a rotating pyramid can create?
No, I don't think I've heard that.
I'd have to refamiliarize myself with his name, but he did a lot of research in laboratory, recorded him doing this, and he has other witnesses to his processes, where he would build pyramid structures and rotate them, and could create a measurable field around them that could block out different types of radiation.
Whoa.
Then he gets a little bit less credible with some of his later experiments, in quotations there, where one pyramid created a field around itself and actually lifted off of the work surface and hovered in the air. But what he claimed is that when these pyramids did that they would all lift up, orient, and point directly into the sky where Orion's belt was.
Did he have that on video?
No, I've not been able to, yeah. That's where those stories fall apart.
Damn it. Oh, so close.
But people all over the world believe in these supernatural, paranormal effects of the pyramid structure.
I have heard some things about that, yeah. That the shape itself does something, and the passageways that are carved inside of it could be like something to create energy or something like that.
The ancient Egyptian pyramids, the large pyramid, has what they first believed were just air tunnels into the sides.
Yeah, that makes no fucking... For what?
construction workers.
Oh,
you don't want
yeah.
them dying on
okay.
the inside of the pyramid
Yeah,
and then
no,
have
that
to
makes
cart
sense.
them out.
Yeah.
That's 2 extra laborers just to carry the one dead guy out. The thing that they don't mention is that on the side of the pyramid that faces towards the south, that that channel lines up with, once again, the Orion's belt.
Son of a bitch. Why that constellation? Over and over and over.
And that's where we get into more star stuff. We are all created from star stuff.
I talked about that on one of the most recent ones, yeah.
Perfect. Then everyone should be familiar with the fact that the birthing process of new stars and planets in our galaxy are created by the death of old stars. Everything that was created inside of a star is shot out into the universe and eventually coalesces into these large gas clouds. Which one of the primary and largest ones in our galaxy happens to be in the Orion Belt constellation. It's where the most active star formation is happening in our galaxy.
So are you suggesting that there's some sort of collective unconscious effect happening here? Like because on the episode that I talked about it on, I was talking about genetic memory and how that's a fairly new discovery. Our genes have the ability to remember things.
Where they've been able to show that mice can learn from their ancestors after their ancestors undergone some sort of an experience.
Yeah, that's we talked about how if your great-great-grandparents experienced a famine, you're more likely to be obese. It's entirely possible that if your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa got bit and injured badly by a spider, that's why you have a phobia of spiders.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So why not our atoms too? That's what the cells are made out of. That's what the genes are made out of, right?
There would have to be a way to record that information within the atom.
Do genes have a way to do that?
Genes, because of the DNA structure, it's a collection, it's like its own computer program that tells everything else around it how to behave.
Well,
that
maybe
DNA strand can be programmed. What you're talking about, and what we've actually proven firsthand on first generation in laboratory experiments with mice, is that you can train a mouse, put it through like a maze where it'll get shocked going down one tunnel. The second generation of those mice will instinctively avoid that tunnel.
And by second generation, the first mice weren't even pregnant yet.
Precisely. Because it has to happen. The experience that the first generation goes through has to happen before they give birth to the second generation.
Or even conceive it.
And a lot of that science has some questions in terms of who has the ability to pass down a lot of that information, because males produce sperm for more or less their entire lives, whereas eggs are produced up to a certain point, and then your reserves are slowly depleted over time in females.
So why not okay, so like I said, our DNA structures are made up of atoms. Why not the input of an atom from a certain region and the DNA knows where it came from?
Or more than likely, like we going back to Antarctica, where we found a perfectly preserved meteorite, which was a chunk of rock from Mars that we found fossilized life inside
Bacteria?
of. Yeah, bacteria inside of.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They have DNA.
Oh, I knew we found bacteria on Mars. I didn't know we found it in a meteorite on Earth.
Yeah.
That's super neat.
Yep. They have DNA.
Yeah.
And it's very easy, and this is how a lot of scientists believe life is started in different solar systems. It's by
panspermia.
Yeah.
That's my belief on it, honestly, like that, because we see it happening here on Earth. It's when a bee pollinates a flower.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Or when what are those what are those fuzzy ones that you blow away and make a wish?
The dandelions.
Dandelions, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is this. That's exactly what we're talking about. When you blow on that and all those little fuzzy things go into the air, they're going off and seeding other parts of the yard or whatever with...
Or especially when a star happens to explode and
boom,
rockets away material from where it is.
Exactly.
That can get caught up in another gas cloud in the galaxy, which is going to be recycled into forming new stars and planetary systems.
Boom. Panspermia.
So, have we been visited by aliens? Probably.
I think, I think our
the
DNA
fact that we are alive
doesn't originate on Earth. I think a meteor with our DNA hit Earth, and Earth was in a habitable zone. And formed up, mixed up.
So, this whole rabbit hole that I went down led me onto the Pangea, obviously, to figure out where Antarctica when Antarctica would have been able to be populated by anything. But it also led me forward in time. 250 million years from now. Was it 250 million or 500 million? Either somewhere in there to the formation of Pangea Ultima, where the tectonic plates will once again come back and coalesce into one large continent. And then I went further ahead in time, to 1 billion years from now. Because at the time of Pangea Ultima, over the next 250 million years, the likelihood of humanity surviving gets lower and lower every year. We don't know if we'll make it through this next century, let alone the next millennia. I did a little bit of research on how the climate and if everything else is left alone, if we don't get obliterated by some massive space rock that just rips the planet in half, and everything is allowed to form, what life would be like on the planet. Temperatures are going to rise by that time because the sun will become more and more luminescent.
A billion years from now? Yeah.
500 million.
Okay.
When Pangea Ultima is still there.
Well, okay.
Because in a billion years, the continents will once again rip apart into brand new continents that we don't even have names for yet.
Right.
But Pangea Ultima will be a much hotter world to live in, especially with all the landmass pooled to one side, and as the Earth turns on its 25-hour-long days, it will have a lot of sun exposure over the singular ocean that encompasses still two-thirds of the globe. That's going to lead to a much wetter and hotter climate.
Yep.
Move forward 1 billion years, and the sun's luminosity will have grown so much that no water will be left in liquid form on the face of Earth.
Aww.
And a lot of our atmosphere, because it's so superheated, will also escape.
Aww.
Leaving us somewhere...
that's a bummer.
Leaving us somewhere in between the planets of Venus and Mars, which is odd that we happen to be in between Venus and Mars.
So our goal... But what it is extending our Goldilocks zone. Our Goldilocks zone at that point would be somewhere farther out than where we are, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Essentially, we would be a very dry... We would have a moist atmosphere similar to Venus's, much less dense. And we would be a very dry, probably gray and orange dirt-colored rocks just riddled with the planets. The continents, you'd be able to see the outlines of them, but by this time, without the pressure of the water working against it as well, the center of the Earth would have cooled down enough to stop the plate tectonics, and we would be frozen in time, much like Mars. And everything that man had made would be under tens of thousands of feet of debris, of sediment that has been laid on top of even our tallest, we're about to finish construction in 2026 of the 1 kilometer tall building.
Oh, yeah, gone. Disintegrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, nothing we have the ability to build would last.
No. which is why the next 30 years, where we've already began the process of getting ready to send the equipment to Mars, but the planetary exploration organizations are preparing a trip for, I believe it's like 2030 or 2050, to actually send a manned crew to Mars. The excavation that's going to happen over the next few hundred years of Mars will reveal a lot about our own planet's history. If we're able to find remnants buried deep under the Martian soil of some, even if it's animal life.
Well, let me ask you something. 1 billion years ago, what was the sun's luminescence? Was Mars in the Goldilocks zone?
Mars had running water.
Right, we know that.
We know that. Mars had a Goldilocks zone.
It was in one, and then the sun became more luminescent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
almost all of the terrestrial planets had periods of time where things were okay. At least basic forms of life could evolve.
And just, I don't know if we've said this yet or not, but just to be on the same page, Goldilocks zone describes if you have a solar system and with a star in the middle. If you're too far away from the star, it's too cold. If you're too close, it's too hot. But if you're in the middle, you're just right for habitation and running water, basically.
And life to form.
Yeah.
Which the idea of the Goldilocks zone is purely based on rocky planets and life forms that require H2O to survive.
Right. Like our type of existence.
Of life. Yes. Yeah. Which is all that we know and all that we have to base it on.
Right. But it is likely that there are different kinds of intelligent, even.
It's likely that if humans go extinct, that some other, in the next 250 million years, that some other creature...
Chimpanzees, bro. They're already using spears to catch fish and shit.
That may not... If the Earth goes under another heavy bombardment period or mass extinction, it's more than likely that a creature that won't even resemble what we consider mammal, reptilian, or avian could evolve out of the coalesced DNA of what's remaining behind.
Could be something else entirely.
I mean, everything that you know has evolved from simple-celled organisms.
Right.
And it's branched into all these different forms of life. One day we might have a warm-blooded, scaled, feathered kind of being that doesn't represent mammal, reptilian, or avian
and in a
any way.
Wet environment.
With much less air. The dinosaurs...
You could get all three of those things with that kind of conditions.
The dinosaurs in their time were much larger. Things were much larger millions and millions of years ago because of the plentiful oxygen. As we move into the future, my theory is that with the reduced oxygen levels due to the sun warming the atmosphere and just a thinner atmosphere in general, meaning less oxygen, things are going to get smaller and smaller. Except for maybe sea creatures, because God knows what can form in the sea.
Well, son of a bitch, man, then... Yeah, Jesus Christ. That's what we need to be exploring. But, okay, so the first thing I was going to ask is then why is, like... So you know Lucy, the super old human that they found? They have like a tomato scale of that at the Michigan State University Museum.
Yeah.
And, when you go look at that, it's like in between around 4.5 feet tallish. And I was about to ask why then early humans were smaller, but would be because of what they were evolving from, right?
Precisely.
So then what if...
At some point in human evolution, being taller made it more likely for you to reproduce.
Right.
Also, with better nutrition, regular diets, and better healthcare, humans were able to reproduce A, more often, and B, able to actually grow more. If you have a malnourished child who's at the age of 12, they can be stunted in growth down to the size of a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But also, like, just the what the earliest humans physically were branching off of, like those early like hominids, right? Is that the right word? They weren't big. They weren't like gorillas. You know what I mean?
Well, the Neanderthals are fairly large.
That's kind of what I'm wondering. Is at any point
Not
could something
tall but wide.
Could something have branched? Was it long? Like go back before? Okay, so what? This would all have been, you know, what? How many around 50,000 years ago? Maybe 100,000, somewhere in there.
100,000. Yeah.
100,000 ish. Okay. Back then, would there? No, because humans weren't alive with dinosaurs. So what caused the less oxygen? Was it the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs? Is that still the accepted thing?
That's one of them.
But what would have caused...
A number of different things contribute to it.
So, well, has there ever been a point in time where humans could have existed and there could have been enough oxygen in the air for us to be, like, 15 feet tall? Or any branch of our species to be, like, pretty tall?
Which would explain why people would count giants and things like all of the cultures describing Orion as a massive, tall man who could literally walk through the ocean with his feet touching the bottom.
Oh, wow. I never heard that. But yeah. Would it ever been theoretically possible?
Yes and no. We would, with all of that extra body mass, you have to also take into account the intelligent levels of some of these animals. The larger that you get, the more appendages that you have, the more fuel you need, the more fuel you need to power your brain, the more
T-Rex did it.
The more of your brain is needed to control such a large...
T-Rex did it with a little brain.
Yeah. No one said the T-Rex was very smart.
And weren't early humans, didn't they have smaller brains?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need a big brain to have a big body.
No, you don't need a big brain to have a big body.
I'm not talking about them necessarily
could
being
mammals be that large? Because that's essentially what you're asking.
Is it elephant? Yeah, T-Rex was a mammal?
No, T-Rex was a reptile.
Bronchiosaurus?
Reptiles.
They're all reptiles?
Yeah.
Huh.
Non-mammalian.
I didn't know they were all
avian.
Non-mammalian.
Dinosaurs are this avian, reptilian kind of crossbreed. Most dinosaurs are descendants from, a lot of birds are descendants from dinosaurs.
Right, yeah, I knew that.
But they lay eggs, much like birds or reptiles.
Right.
And with their behavior and, what we know about their bone structures, it's more along the lines of a reptilian versus an avian in a lot of the different species.
So it's physically possible for it to have happened, for a big human.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if we were to start selectively breeding humans purely based on size, we could make some big ones.
Yeah.
I'm
talking like 15 to 20 feet.
Yeah. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible.
Wow.
Mammals have the capability of getting to that size and larger.
Okay, so it's theoretically possible for there to have been giants. All right.
And Sasquatch.
Because, that's also Sasquatch, I think, is still around, but he's not 15 feet tall either.
He's hanging out on the northern shore of the Lake Superior.
He's all over the place. That's another thing you can point to, that cultures that had no interaction with one another all were describing the same thing throughout their entire history. Mm-hmm. So, and up to today, even. Except now all of the cultures interact with each other. So, what was I gonna say? Big humans. That's another, part of the, any time an ancient culture references a god that walked among humans, they were always very tall. And that's like one of the things the ancient alien theorists point to. One of the like quote unquote races of fucking aliens that they believe to have come here are called the Nephilim, and they're said to be like 15 feet tall.
15 feet tall with elongated skulls?
Elongated skulls and long flowing white hair. Which is
exactly, if you recall at the very beginning of this, that's exactly the way that the ancient civilization that existed west of the Giza Plateau.
Oh, okay.
That made that small monolithic.
Okay, yeah, the little thing. Yeah.
That's how their artwork depicts themselves.
Weird. Because that's completely inaccurate of what
we know
of the type of human that would have been there at the time.
Mm-hmm. We know literally nothing about this culture.
There's no reason at all for them to have drawn something that looked like that. Unless they were just using their imaginations.
It could be just an artistic representation, but the choices all across the globe to depict human-like creatures with elongated skulls is another commonality.
This was also
ancient aliens.
It's another thing that they talk about when you talk about like the lost civilization of Atlantis. And that's just an example of a more advanced civilization than the ones around it. It doesn't need to be more advanced than anything we have today. It just needs to be more advanced than the ones around it for it to be called that, spoken of like that throughout history. And they were just taken out by a natural disaster, which we know for a fact happens. So I mean, like I said earlier, we found pyramids underwater. We know major civilizations have been washed away, literally.
It's weird that within our lifetimes, most of Venice will be underwater.
So will fucking Florida, bro. Miami pretty much already is.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, they regularly flood when it doesn't rain. Normal sunny day, no raining at all, and the streets are flooded.
I mean, it's kind of fun.
I guess. Causes some problems for homes and businesses, but...
We do live in a fantastic area. If we can sustain
pretty lucky
human life in Michigan, even after we go through our Pangea experience, Michigan should actually survive a good portion of that.
And in terms of global warming, in the next 100 years, in our lifetime, all that's going to happen here, a little bit warmer. Like, literally, like, we're going to lose winter, and we're probably going to lose fall and spring, and just have, like, a weird fall/spring and a long summer. Which, to me, sounds fucking fantastic.
It might not be as fantastic as you think.
Because it's going to fuck up our entire environment, but...
when you think back to what the Great Lakes were like 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, when the last heat wave came through after a previous ice age.
What happened?
The water levels in the Great Lakes dropped. Which is why...
Like, real far?
Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are connected at the Mackinac Straits. You've been over the Mackinac Bridge. Everyone loves it in Michigan. Yeah. Very little known fact. Right under the center of the bridge is a gorge that goes down for meters and meters and meters, where there used to be a river that was the only thing that ran through there, connecting the very small Lake Michigan to Lake Huron.
What?
That's all there was. The entire thing was land, except for...
Wait a minute. There was a point in time during humans.
You know, the two in the very middle of the bridge. Oh yes, well within human times.
Where they didn't need a bridge.
No,
to get from the lower peninsula to the upper peninsula.
Especially not in the winter when that river...
There was just a river.
When that river probably froze over.
Jesus Christ. That's crazy.
Going out into Lake Huron, there was a land bridge that there are what even hunters in Alaska, Eskimo hunters use today to hunt caribou. You build these little stone structures to guide the caribou along a certain line and funnel them into a hunting zone.
Okay.
At the bottom of Lake Huron, on what used to be a land bridge when all of the water had been drained out, we find these man-made structures.
Oh my god. What?
Meters and meters underwater now.
Meters?
And meters. And you were talking like 50, 60 feet down.
Wow. So we might lose a lot of water.
We could lose a lot of water.
Chunk.
Or it could go in the opposite direction with the glacial melts.
Oh, they get replenished. With it warming up, it losing, and the glacier melting and it coming in, it'll even out. It'll be fine.
See, I'm not a geologist, so I don't know what global warming actually means for the Great Lakes, but I can suppose on a bunch of different scenarios. Either we could lose a lot of water as the heat dries things up and water evaporates out of the great freshwater lakes, or with the increase in water levels throughout the entire world, the more storms that are going to happen, more rain filling in these lakes, we are either going to see these water levels rise drastically, maybe waves crashing over the bridge that we so frequently drive through now.
I mean, we did just have the craziest flood I've ever seen in person here in Lansing.
It would essentially be like cutting off the tips of your fingers for the mitten.
We're gonna need a bigger bridge.
We're gonna need a lot of things.
Wow, that's wild.
The world has changed so many times in human history.
Yeah, to think that, have it locked down in terms of how long there's been intelligent human civilizations seems a little naive when you consider all of this.
Mm-hmm.
To think it's only been, 15,000 years that we've been building structures and things like that doesn't seem right.
No.
So I think, and that's kind of what, looking at a lot of the, and pretty much any of the things that an ancient alien theorist points to, I can find a logical way that it was humans. And it's until, they really gotta show me something, but
their strongest argument is the so many different, they have different examples of so many different similar things happening all across the world.
That is definitely a very strong argument. That is very strong argument. Like, that cannot be ignored.
That can be wiped away entirely. I feel like that can be very easily ignored. Simply by us not understanding human history to its fullest extent. We were probably much more advanced long before we current belief structure, current scientists think that we were.
So just like when the Catholics made everybody in the world that they conquered be Catholic, something else did that once already. And then everything got wiped out.
Or just to the level of the Egyptians, in terms of technologically
the Egyptians
advanced.
never crossed an ocean. The Catholics did.
Humans have...
The Vikings were here first, besides.
Humans have went all over the globe. The Native Americans were here first.
Yeah, I was going to say besides that.
Those traditions passed on from early human ancestors who were probably more advanced than we give them credit for, could have easily been carried on in all of these travelers who encompass the entire globe. The fact that a lot of these things were built around the same period of time, that a lot of these things have so many different things in common with cultures that weren't in communication with each other at the time, doesn't mean that they don't all root from the same, more or less, base population.
Yeah.
And especially if it was a slightly more advanced population that sent out. Imagine today if we were vanished to a totally uninhabited continent with 15,000 other people, with no access to cell phones, with no materials other than what we can make on our own. We would, first of all, it would take generations to do this on foot.
Yeah, Joe Rogan has one of my favorite jokes about this. He goes, if I left you alone in the woods with an axe right now, how long before you send me an email?
Literally like 2 minutes.
Hang on. You can't leave the woods. But yeah. It would take a long time.
Generations. And some information, the important information, is going to be passed on. How to make the same tools, and why we're doing this, what we believe in. Because for some reason, humans have this unquenchable thirst to understand why.
Yeah, like why the fuck they spent all that time on the pyramids.
Or why we exist. Which is why I think that the stories of Orion and us coming down from there was a culture long before that we don't have records of. that probably propagated this information throughout most of humanity long before humans began to traverse the Earth.
Okay, fine. I can accept that, but even then, why did they pick that constellation?
It's the birthplace.
What made them say that?
Aliens.
No, I kind of think it might, like, and it just so, like you said earlier, it just so happens to be, like, an extra fertile part of our fucking area that we're in.
What's interesting is that it's still, to this day, one of the most studied sections of the sky, because of how fertile it is for the formation of planets and other solar systems. So humans, throughout our entire history, have been fascinated by those three little stars, which, to ancient humans' credits, it's probably because from almost anywhere on the globe, it's one of the easiest constellations to pick out in the sky, alongside the Big Dipper.
But really? That's what we're going with? They picked it because it's the easiest one to spot.
3 stars in a row that are pointed to by the brightest star in the sky, along with two of the other brightest stars in the sky. You have Sirius, Rigel, Betelgeuse, all in the same area. That area is going to be a hot spot for attention, especially by people who, at nighttime and throughout their entire lives, are dependent on the information that they get from looking up into the stars. That constellation alone, being able to say, if you can find that, you know how to find home.
Yeah. And that's home. Shit, that's it. Oh my god, you just hit it. Damn. And that's why they built all that shit. It represents home all over the world. So no matter what continent you're on, you can find home.
Or, and we can go back to your...
Damn, dude.
Or we can go back to your, theory that DNA can actually preserve memory.
It could be both.
And somehow, memory that we are actually descendants from some life form that started off over there near the Orion constellation.
Ended up on Mars, ended up on here. Mars probably got hit by something big, which probably knocked up a bunch of its shit, which probably had bacteria on it that probably hit Earth and messed with us, and that was probably where it started. I think we are Martians. I think that's entirely possible. Because if there was the next planet over at one point in time had running water, panspermia is a thing,
had running water and has
logical.
Fossilized remains of organisms, bacteria.
Living organisms. And there's probably a whole lot more when we go there and find it.
I think that doing some excavation on Mars is going to change the way that humans look at our position in the universe.
I agree with you completely on that.
Especially when we find the pyramids.
Oh my god. That would be insane. There's people that say they've already found pyramids on Mars.
Yeah, they also found the face, and then they looked at it from a different angle.
Oh no, at least the thing I saw something pop up recently. I didn't actually read it, but it was an image from the rover that's up there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't actually look at it, so I don't know.
Of pyramids?
That someone was saying that an image from the rover showed a pyramid, is what I saw. I didn't see the picture.
If we can find any evidence on any other planet of the same pattern of mimicking the Orion belt or star system, that would be proof to me that there is something out there.
That would be proof to me, if we found it on Mars, that would be proof to me that that's where we came from.
That would be proof to me that aliens.
Really?
Mm-mm.
You think it's more likely that aliens would have done it than the things on Mars dying, getting hit by something, and it coming onto Earth?
I think that it is more likely that if the Orion constellation was as important to a civilization that existed on
a different planet
as it was to Earth,
it's still the brightest star in the sky for them. It's still home.
True.
It could be the same exact thing.
It could be, but that would make me bend.
Interesting. I really like that, what you just said right there. That's home, and they built it. That's why they built them. Because that clicks in my head. That makes sense. Like, that's something in ancient civilization it makes complete sense for them to do.
Well, and
It's a giant road sign.
that's what the stars are.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been used for centuries and centuries. It's a road sign. That's how
They were building it.
ship captains navigate.
They were building it for their other humans. And that's a pretty noble reason. Like, that's something that would... Because so growing up in school and all those shitty fucking movies we watched about building the pyramids, they always depicted the people building it as slaves. And then we know now that's not the case. They weren't slaves. They were volunteers. Why in the flying fuck would you volunteer to do that?
I don't know.
For the noblest of causes. For humanity.
It would also be pretty fun.
No, you'd die.
I mean, maybe.
Probably.
I mean, would you volunteer to be sent to Mars?
Nope.
Because you would probably die.
You'd definitely die. Maybe not on the way. You'd probably make it, but you're dying on Mars. You're not coming back.
I mean, did you see Matt Damon?
I haven't seen that yet, but I do really want to. I heard it's really good.
You need to see that. I won't spoil anything.
Oh, yeah.
But you'll probably die.
But I know, yeah, go, hey, you want to get in a tiny rocket ship with a bunch of people you don't know and then be sent somewhere where you can't breathe and there's nothing you like? No, I'm good on that.
Honestly, it's the only plausible future of humanity to outlive our own solar system. We have to populate other planets and other star systems.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying humans shouldn't go.
I'm saying that you should go to this trip to Mars.
But also, it's not Mars that's going to save us. It's the ability to go there. It's developing the technology and the ability to go to a different planet and possibly, if we can also find a way to come home and set up something to sustain human life. Mm-hmm. Now, what's going to save humans is that process. It's not going to be going to a planet that's closer to the sun.
It's further away from the sun.
Oh, is it than us?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's Earth, Mars, asteroid belt, Jupiter.
What's in between us and the sun? Just Venus?
Venus and Mercury.
Mercury. Oh. Well, that fucks up everything I was just saying then. Because that means that Mars is... Are they in the Goldilocks zone with us, then?
They were at one point.
Why aren't they now, if the sun's getting more luminous?
Because...
If they're farther out, shouldn't it be to them next? After us?
The heating effect didn't have enough water. It's already evaporated.
So when it had water, it wasn't in a Goldilocks zone, or was it?
It was.
And we weren't or were?
We were as well.
So the Goldilocks zone was just bigger?
More than likely, the bombardment period on Mars probably lasted a little bit less time. Because Mars is further out from the sun, the rocks that formed it were able to cool faster than Earth, Venus, and Mercury. Mercury would have been one of the last planets to actually form, because in the early birth of our solar system, the heat would have been very intense the closer that you got to the sun. It has a couple of different stages where the sun is born, and everything in the swirling cloud around it is super hot.
But I don't get how it was and now it's not.
It still is?
And I don't get how we would be...
Smaller planet, less gravitational pull on its atmosphere, no moon.
That is a big part of it that we haven't gotten into yet.
A lack of a magnetic field that we have been able to observe, or at least not a strong enough one to protect it from solar winds blowing its atmosphere away. A great thing to do would be to steal some asteroids from the belt and tie them together into a moon-like structure to orbit around.
So early on, the sun super, super hot, then it cools and it gets hotter again before it dies?
It's a condensing cloud of gas. Mm-hmm. And as it starts spinning faster, that entire gas cloud starts heating up.
Yeah.
Until at the very center, it finally bursts into something that's massive enough to be called a star.
Right.
The rest of the gas slowly starts to cool down.
Right. Okay.
After that point.
Okay, so it's super hot, then gets cool.
Which is why the outside of the asteroid belt, you see gas giants. Out there, rock and water are able to coalesce a lot faster. The closer in you get, the longer it takes for things to cool down into solid forms.
Okay.
Which is why Mars would have been cool enough to have water long before Earth was.
Okay.
We're all still in the Goldilocks zone in between Mars and Venus, but due to different things that have happened geologically on our planets, we've taken very different paths. Venus has maintained its atmosphere and actually made it thicker and thicker due to gases being released.
Okay.
Which is why it's more or less baked itself inside due to the greenhouse gas effect.
Right.
Mars lost most of its atmosphere, and with that, it had no protection from the sun's rays beating down on its water, evaporating them, and because it's a little bit smaller than Earth, not having enough gravitational pull to bring back these superheated gases that are spouting off of it.
Okay.
Earth...
That still kind of messes up my whole thing about there being life on Mars first, though.
Not really, because the Earth is 4.3 billion years, 4.5 billion years old. We didn't cool down for, 3 billion of those years.
So we were just simply too hot for existence until a billion years ago.
We were a swirling ball of molten rock, essentially, with active volcanoes everywhere, until different plates began to cool enough and harden for there to actually be a solid surface on Earth. And then, something crashed into us, thus forming the moon. Something else probably crashed into us, providing the extensive amount of water that we have.
So yeah, maybe we are Martians.
But Mars would have cooled down probably a billion years before we did. They would have had a billion years. We're talking 250 million years ago into the Cretaceous period.
Right. And they got a full 2 billion.
That's just a quarter of the time that Mars had to probably develop life before it was finally snuffed out. Life did form on Mars. Intelligent life, who knows? We won't know until we actually dig. And we're going to have to dig pretty deep.
It's just the fucking things in Antarctica are really blowing my mind. There's just nothing that makes sense about that at all.
Well, let's say, take the Neanderthals for existence.
For existence.
For instance, and for existence. They did exist. And Homo sapiens literally fucked them to extinction. We interbred them out of existence. And if the Antarctic pyramids were from an ancient civilization that may have existed during the reign of the dinosaurs and died out at some point after that, or maybe they continued to exist and interbred and they are the missing link.
Yeah.
And somehow made humans, or maybe aliens had visited Earth, and we did to them much like we did to the Neanderthals, and interbred with them until they were extinct.
I mean, the only thing that actually kind of makes any sense in terms of aliens having spotted us from a distance and coming here is the whole when we started testing nuclear weapons, because there is an effect that happens that's been shown to happen of when one of those explosions goes off. There's particles that are shot out potentially at or at least at the speed of light or something like that. So there's something that could be out farther that something could have detected quicker than anything else that we'd ever had before.
Radio waves are sent at the speed of light as well.
Maybe it's faster. Or no, it can't be faster, obviously. It's something to where... I can't remember what it is exactly, but there's something about that where, that would have... For some reason, a nuclear explosion makes us more noticeable than just the radio waves at a larger distance somehow.
Because it's a higher frequency energy being released.
Okay.
Nuclear reactions release gamma radiation, X-rays, radio waves, infrared, and visible light. They're all on the spectrum of the electromagnetic radiation. All electromagnetic radiation is light, and it all travels at the same speed. nuclear bombs going off would be easier to pick up, but they happen for a much shorter period of time than a radio wave.
Oh, okay.
Radio waves have the benefit of being able to travel long distances and through more objects. The gamma and other radiations and particles given off by a nuclear explosion would have a much higher energy rating that wouldn't dissipate as quickly over vast distances as radio waves would be. Because radio waves at certain wavelengths will eventually bounce off of certain objects, depending on how dense they are.
Okay.
But either way, the same radio wave strong enough to actually make it to be broadcast out into the solar system happen to more or less coincide hand in hand with the first tests of atomic bombs. So either aliens are going to see flashes of high energy light coming from Earth from us testing nuclear weapons, or they're going to hear Hitler speaking about how we need to exterminate.
Right.
We fucked the Neanderthals into extinction.
Okay.
Did you find it?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to see a picture of the pyramids down there. And, this is on Snopes. Snopes is questionable. But what they're doing is picking apart a theory about it. But the things that they're picking apart, you and I have already picked apart. And then they, literally, we've already talked about most of it. And then they're going into how it's a feature of glaciated areas. But they're not saying if anyone, went there. This is just a mountain that looks like a pyramid, according to a geology professor that told Live Science in 2016, a geology professor from the University of California, Irvine. But did you go there? Did you see it? Has anybody they're just they're picking apart a specific person's post, and they're talking about continent. Like the person said 100 million years ago, it was near the equator or some shit like that, and that's just not the case at all. Because it's been in its current latitude for 100 million years. But we already said that.
That later on in time?
That it most likely wouldn't have been a situation where they built it while it was... Yeah, that's the picture I'm looking at. They built it while it was lush.
Keep looking at that picture.
Is there a zoomed out version?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
You can view it on Google Earth.
Yeah, I know. One thing, though, is it's suggesting that if these are pyramids, they would be 10 times bigger than the ones in Giza. And that seems pretty crazy.
So you have your picture of those 3 pyramids up.
What's that, Giza?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying.
Look at the spacing between them, the lines that they make, how the smallest one in the corner is slightly offset from a direct line, just like the stars of Orion.
It is weird that there's 3 of them in a line like that. What the fuck is that?
Altered over time by weathering, but until someone...
Here we go. Just for anybody listening, it says it can be found at coordinates 79 degrees, 58, apostrophe 39.25, quotation mark S, 81 degrees, 57, apostrophe 32.21, quotation mark W, so I think that's southwest, obviously. The Ellsworth Mountains, which range more than 400 kilometers long.
Obviously, they're mountains. That's what China says about the pyramids that they won't allow anyone to look at in their province. And it does. When you zoom in on Google Earth, they do connect right with a mountain line.
Okay. See, on IFL Science, all they did was talk to a geologist, and the geologist said, it's not a complicated shape, so it's not a special coincidence. It's a nunatak, which is Nunatak, which is simply a peak of rock sticking out above a glacier or an ice sheet. This one just happens to have shaped into a pyramid, but that doesn't make it a human construction. But what about the fact, were the science classes that I grew up on always full of shit? I'm not willing to rule that. That's entirely possible.
Oh, yeah. Most of what we grew up on was full of shit.
Okay, then.
But that doesn't change the fact that simply because it can be a geological process doesn't mean that it is. No one's investigated it, and it is a very curious feature on the Antarctic continent. And if it turns out to just be mountain ranges that happen, just parts of the mountain ranges that happen to look very much like a lot of man-made features across the entire world, then so be it, but that's still a very odd coincidence. And I'm not willing to rule it out as not being man-made until someone could do more than look at the image and speculate.
Right. That's all I'm finding. Like, every single top Google search thing that comes up is nothing but them speculating on the image.
And that's why I began with we've known about these structures for some time.
Yeah.
There have been explorers who pointed them out long ago. We're currently going through a resurgence of information about them, and everyone's denying the fact that they have any real significance.
This is what's going on. There's a resurgence of this, and it's associated with the flat earthers. That's what it is. And in those claims in particular, the bullshit ones that they're saying are easy to discredit. But that doesn't discredit the fact that these things are definitely down there. And I can't find a single scientist talking about having gone there, or a single video or anything.
Well, yeah, we all want to discredit a flat earther every now and again.
Well, fuck them. But it's just, it kind of seems like, I notice that sometimes, like, when there's a real big hunk of bullshit going around, somebody within that camp will say something or point something out as a piece of evidence.
This is proof that the Earth is flat and humans built that.
They're pointing at it wrong, but the fact that but they are pointing at something, and sometimes those somethings aren't fully aren't looked at with the scrutiny that they should be.
The issue is you get a point of view. You get someone arguing from a point of view that isn't based on credible sources.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's the person that's arguing for a further investigation of this finding, everyone discredits them because they are flat earthers.
Right.
Because their theories about the shape of the Earth are very easy to
discredit.
Discredit.
And it's kind of like the Graham Hancock thing. Like, yeah, okay, he maybe thought something was going to go down in 2012, but that doesn't mean that he's wrong about everything else that he does. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we should give credit to crackpots or anything, but I'm also saying he's not a crackpot.
Exactly.
He's a very intelligent human being.
And he was right. A lot of things did happen in 2012. The Mayans were right. It was...
If you actually look into the prophecy of the... they have their calendar broken up into segments of, like, a couple thousand years within each constellation. The Earth, they think, moves through the constellations. And there's always an ending, and beginning of whenever, it changes. And that's what happened in 2012. It went into a different age, and in their, like, prophecies or whatever, it's described in certain ways, but those certain ways are, in my opinion at least, very open to interpretation. So I always personally kind of looked at it as more of like a changing of consciousness, not a physical change on Earth, like a destruction, in terms of the way it's written and stuff. I've heard translations of it before. It's, how much can you really trust the translation because it's a ancient language, but still, that's kind of how I interpreted the translation, at least.
Do the Mayans have anything in their calendar about the age of Orion?
No, because it was... well, they're constellations, but isn't that also like zodiac or like signs, astrology?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it? Yeah. Yeah, like those things. But it's also based on constellation. No, there's no Orion one that I know of. Maybe there's one. I don't know them all.
Or maybe it's just named differently.
For the Mayans, I don't know what all their names are. Yeah. Boom, the hunter. There's a hunter in all of them. So yeah, there is one. It probably just isn't called named Orion. It's just like the Chinese one that's called the hunter, I think.
Yeah.
Or are they all animals?
The Chinese are all
animals.
animals.
There's one that has a hunter on it, though. Sagittarius is a part hunter, isn't he? A centaur with a bow and arrow.
Just the astrological, what you just said.
Astrology.
Yeah, astrology.
Yeah, I think that's what closer resembles what it baits on, as opposed to, like, the Big Dipper, you know?
Yeah.
I always grew up with the Native American legend of Orion, and in that one, I don't think he was a giant. He was just a normal guy. But it has to do with Devil's Tower.
I'm interested. I just took my Ancestry DNA kit and submitted it.
You sent it back?
Yep.
Hell yeah.
I'm interested to see what that reveals about my ancestral past.
It's gonna be interesting.
I really hope I'm Neanderthal.
I don't know if they go... Do they go back that far?
I think that they do show if you have Neanderthal DNA.
Huh. That's cool.
Did your family do any?
Yeah. All of them, like everybody except me, and I don't know if did one, but...
Because I've always thought that you have...
I don't know if theirs came back with anything.
I don't know if I can say this in the nicest way. You might be a Neanderthal, just like a fraction in there somewhere.
I don't know if I can rule that out.
You can.
I kind of live in a cave.
Well, at least it's a brightly lit one.
Yeah.
And you haven't done too many drawings on the walls.
That's true. So yeah, upon investigation, when you Google search pyramids in Antarctica, you'll get a few websites saying it's fake, but what they're saying is fake isn't what we're referring to. Like, they're just picking apart the bullshit that the recent resurgence of the finding has people talking about, or that people are saying, or whatever.
The fact of the matter is even if it is a normal geological occurrence, it would still be a fascinating one to uncover and dig deeper into to understand the finer geological workings of a continent that we rarely get to visit and have very little understanding of. Because my current, I really feel like I've heard Neil fucking deGrasse Tyson say the pyramid shape can't exist in nature, or like one of the big ones that I listen to. One of them, I think, has said that. So I know I'm not just pulling that out of my ass. You know what I mean? Like, I was real sure that the current understanding was these things don't just occur naturally, but maybe that's incorrect. I'm totally willing to accept that. I just need some evidence. Not at those angles, especially when you take into account the Giza pyramids. They're arranged in such a way that there's too many coincidences for it to be. Now, obviously, we know those are man-made, right? But in those cases, there's so many. If there were any question, there's too many coincidences for it to be lined up perfectly with this in this particular shape, with so many right angles at these perfect 45-degree angles going up. Yeah. All of that together is impossible to recreate in nature on a scale of like 1 and a... Yeah, it's not seen in nature. Yeah. You know, one that gets talked about, and, ultimately, what I credit ancient alien stuff to, honestly, is just a desire to explain the unexplained, which, in my opinion, is all religion ever was or is. It's just early humans trying to explain the unexplained. Nothing more than that at all. Mm-hmm. And I get that. But, and you can usually go through and at this point especially find ways to, if they point to something to say and saying it's unexplained, you can usually be like, well, no, actually someone's already explained that. Except there's one that they often point to, and I haven't heard, at least, and I'm not saying there isn't, I just haven't heard an explanation for it, are the heads on Easter Island. I've never heard, like, a scientist say, this civilization put these here at this time, probably for this reason. And I'm certainly not saying it was aliens, but that's a mystery. But I'm not saying it's a mystery. That it wasn't. No, I'm saying it's a genuine mystery that still exists on Earth. That as far as I know, we got nothing. And I'm pretty sure that, Josh Gates
on Expedition Unknown and Destination Truth. He went to the Easter Islands on an episode. And, okay, so I can't remember which show it was, but if it was Destination Truth, that's still within the last 6 years or so. When he went, there's no, I think there are caves. They did find caves on Easter Island with drawings in them and stuff like that, but there's still no explanation of who it was, where it came from, or why, because it doesn't appear anywhere else. And the depiction is different. It's unique. Like, there's nowhere else that anything like that is depicted, really. Mm-hmm. So that's one that ain't, like, I always see, I'll see it pop up from time to time, and still no one's been able to pin it down.
There's a lot that we don't know about our own history, and many more mysteries to uncover.
Oh my God.
Simply within our own planet.
Yeah, don't be fucking jaded, people. Like, don't think it's all been seen and all been uncovered. Every note has been played. Every movie's been written. No. Far from it. There is somebody somewhere right now, and I've said this before, there's somebody somewhere right now in a basement coming up with something that's going to blow your fucking mind one day.
There's some animal somewhere right now eating another animal that we have never discovered.
Yeah, absolutely, especially down in the ocean. There's things down there that...
Yeah, there's this one type of sea worm that they discovered while drilling into going back to Antarctica, while drilling down into one of the glaciers in Antarctica. They're expecting to find...
For the record, did the worm hurt anybody?
No.
Okay, does it have the ability to?
Yes.
Okay, had it hurt anybody, you would have just to a T described an episode of The X-Files. I swear to Christ. Good episode, too.
What's the movie where they find the worm-like thing frozen in ice?
The Thing?
Yeah.
I've never actually seen it all the way through.
That's what this is. It looks spot on.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Like,
wow.
Because it's a big worm-like thing that they find...
In the ice. Dead? In the ice. Obviously?
No, alive. They're alive. They bury in the... They've been watched burying in there. They have these...
What?
They have these weird little mandible teeth that have the power to crush rocks.
Show me a picture. I need to see this. They're an extremophile.
Yeah. What? When they dug down, they found an ocean and they're expecting just it to be barren of life. What could live in an ocean underneath a glacier, or in a lake underneath a glacier, in Antarctica, and they found it teeming with all sorts of life. And they pulled out this...
And this is life that's larger than micro. You're making, that's about 25 inches, that's about 2 feet.
About 2 of my forearms, yeah.
2.5 feet or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was under the impression, according to the fucking class I was in 2 years ago at Michigan State University, the geology class I had to take, extremophiles are microorganisms.
Oh, no.
Extremophiles are things that can live in extreme environments, like in lava, or in ice, or in the vacuum of space. These are rare anomalies of nature, and living in places that we think of as completely barren of life, like you just said. And now you're telling me we found a fucking worm with teeth that lives in ice. What? Okay, fuck everything we just said. Aliens have definitely been here. That's one of them. What the fuck? Oh my God. Just the description of this thing right now has got me going. Like, have you ever seen Tremors?
Yeah.
It's like a graboid? Is it like a graboid?
Not quite. It's more like a centipede.
Okay. They just made a Tremors 5, which takes place in Antarctica. I fuck with you not.
That's probably based on real life events.
It's called Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell.
The news report I'm reading right now says that the research team didn't make it back alive.
No.
I'm obviously joking.
I was like, it is the X-Files.
No. Oh, God. I'm trying to find the links.
Is that it?
Yeah. How'd you find that?
I just googled ice worm and went to images. That's it?
Yeah, that's like a smaller version of it.
Oh! Let me see it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, and those jaws are so powerful they can, like, crush rocks.
That is insane. I've never seen that. That looks like a Chinese dragon.
Oh yeah, no, they're terrifying looking.
It literally looks like it has like a gold fur around its edges, and then its face kind of is like a giant ant almost. It's got like pincer teeth coming from the side. Like, holy sweet flying fuck! Oh, you know what this looks like, dude? Are those son of a bitch? What's the name of them? We find fossils of them. They used to live in the ocean. They their fossils kind of look like leaves. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like one of the most common, like, if you find a fossil, it's one of the most common ones.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, the troglodyte.
Troglodyte, yeah. It kind of looks like a fucking troglodyte, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, they're probably...
It's gotta be an ancestor of some kind.
Prehistoric.
Wow. Just Google search iceworm. This picture is the Antarctic scale worm from AustralianGeographic.com. Wow. That is absolutely mind-blowing. I wonder how big they can get. Well, we probably don't even know. We probably have, like, no idea about these things.
This is what's coming for us from under the melting ice.
Yeah, the ice melts and these things come after us.
Well, that's not at all unreasonable. If the ice melts enough to allow this secluded creature out into the open ocean, and it's able to thrive and survive, it's very likely that it could become an invasive species and take over all the open, fresh, and salt water in the world.
Yeah, Antarctic scale worm. Just search that. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, it could definitely do damage to things that I've never seen it before, yeah.
I mean, that's what the mussels did in Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm. God, it's crazy that it looks like it has like gold fur. Like gold.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a human thumb holding it, and it's pretty large. Wow. Unbelievable.
The head is about that big. So yeah, that one is probably about this big, like a little bit over a foot, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's about what it looks like, probably.
I swear, the video that I saw of it originally showed it in the water, not just...
Like alive?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's insane. That does not look like a creature that should exist today. That's how crazy it looks.
This also exists.
It's not a jellyfish.
They just call it a monster.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the one that they tunnel down. I don't think that's a jellyfish.
There are jellyfish that look like monsters. Like that one that got caught on camera off the oil rig, and it literally just looked like a blob.
Jellyfish are monsters.
Yeah, pretty much. They're like a petri dish. They're like the nature's petri dish. Nature tests everything out on a jellyfish. Like think of every superpower. There's like a jellyfish that has that superpower, except for like laser vision.
And
there's one that can live forever.
Flight.
Well, they kind of always are flying, sort of.
I mean, we can swim.
Yeah, well, that's just flying underwater.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a jellyfish that can live forever. There's some that can that are like can't be eaten or something. I don't know. Like crazy defense systems, and they have every different look ever.
Every shape,
yeah.
Look, length, size.
Some of them can light up. Really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the fucking aliens, dude. The ice worms are the fucking aliens, dude. You don't have to go off planet to find some of this crazy fucking shit.
And proof that life can form in the weirdest of situations.
Any environment.
Gives more evidence that we're more than likely to find life hiding in the oceans of Europa or one of Jupiter's or Saturn's other frozen ice moons.
I mean, we found life under a glacier, right?
We found life under a glacier.
Couldn't we potentially find life if there's still running water somewhere under the surface of Mars?
Yeah, we probably could. They do have...
If there's running water.
There is, there are, like, very, very small ice caps. On Mars.
Yep, North and South Pole. It has them. So, there could be some ice worms on Mars, for all we fucking know.
What if they're literally the same?
I don't know how to explain that.
Fucking ice worms. I'm not gonna sleep very well tonight.
Well, we don't have to worry about ice worms.
Global warming, man.
It's not kicked up that much yet.
It will be within our lifetimes.
Yeah, but they haven't... Yeah, they might make it down here in our lifetime, but probably not. How do we know that the warm weather won't immediately kill him like a vampire?
In our lifetime, you're gonna have to check the toilet every time you go to sit down to make sure that an ice worm hasn't crawled up inside of it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. In our lifetime, that's going to be a concern. Okay.
I'm predicting it right now.
He's calling it right here on Lost in the Dark.
2058.
40 years, ice worms. That's how long you got.
What other kind of monsters lurk in the dark that are just waiting?
Do you know what the... have you ever heard of the Neogen, I think is what it's called?
No.
It's Japanese... it's part of Japanese folklore. I don't know what their folklore says about it, other than what it looks like. But it's just massive, like a massive humanoid shape, but with like a tiny body and tiny head and massive arms and legs. Like literal giant, taller than any building in Lansing kind of thing. And, I mean, there's videos on the internet of these things being seen on camera underwater. And it's a shape that it would be very unusual to occur in nature.
Tiny body.
No. Oh, yeah.
Tiny head, massive arms and legs.
I'll show you a picture.
The size of a blue whale.
Yeah. I think it's called Neogen. Ninjin, maybe? Ninjin.Ningen. Yes. Oh, come on. Just give me like a drawing picture. I don't know if that's real or not.
No, that's real.
Why can't I find like the picture they use on all the TV shows? I figured it'd be like the most common one. A giant stick figure sort of looking fucky thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the legs are more prominent than that image is showing.
You can't see the legs.
Yeah. But there's like videos online that claim to be taken from like military submarines filming that thing.
I would totally believe that this is real.
That's right. That's the thing that gets me about it, is there's nothing about that that's unbelievable. That looks like something that could exist in the ocean. It's like, yeah, why not? Like, tell me why not, you know? I got nothing. It's just a big... And if the picture that I just saw is real, it looks like it was taken, like, up close enough its face, and that looks like a whale's face. So why can't it just be some fucked up offshoot of a whale?
Because we'd probably see them surface more often.
Oh, yeah, because whales are mammals. True.
Oh, shit.
So in terms of what monsters are still lurking out there undiscovered, I think there are many. I think the ocean is teeming with them still. There's no science has said why certain animals have to be extinct, like the megalodon. You know, there's no reason why there aren't huge sharks deep down. No, we already know there are massive squids. So why can't something like a ninjin or a megalodon or...
I think the megalodons went extinct with their sources of food, and much like a lot of the...
Right, but think about this.
A lot of other species, with the lack of oxygen, makes it harder to sustain a larger form.
Then why... is there more oxygen the deeper you go in the ocean?
No.
So, there's a lot... I don't know if... Why isn't it possible that the megalodon's giant squid food source just started going deeper? So they followed.
So you're saying that there's megalodons potentially devouring giant squids near the bottom of the ocean?
Why not?
Because that's terrifying.
I mean, we've seen... do you remember...
What happens when they
come up?
Culture of the megalodon or the food source of the megalodon finally gives out down there, and they come up.
I think it's more likely that the oceans will warm up. I think that's why another reason that's why the squids went down was because it's warmer. So the megalodons followed, and now that the oceans are warming again, that might bring them all back up. Hence why we're now able to capture a giant squid on video for the first time in the last 8 years. And do you remember when we like before it was confirmed, when there was just like bits and pieces washing up on shores. Nobody had a camera, nobody had a video, nothing. Nobody was really sure. And then what did we start seeing? Fucking carcasses of whales with giant chunks missing, washing up on the fucking... We started seeing the evidence of these monsters.
Oh.
And then we finally caught one on tape.
Alright, so I brought you pyramids and, like, thought experiments, and you're literally just telling me before I'm about to take a cruise for my honeymoon.
I didn't know that was your plan.
Either way, we'll be in Hawaii.
Well, I changed my... When you asked me that was not a... I wouldn't go to Hawaii now. I mean, I know it's just that one island, but still.
Yeah, but that one island, what if they're just...
Yeah, a chain reaction.
Yeah, circling the island with giant fucking...
Oh, monsters?
Monster sharks. Yeah. Or especially, they're disturbed by the volcano.
Oh.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't go on a cruise out there right now.
Oh, I'm down.
Yeah, there's things down there, for sure. And there's gigantic pieces of land that are just almost untraversable, where things on land could easily be living and go even today without ever being seen. You gotta keep in mind, there are countries that people from outside of that country aren't allowed to come into, and especially to film. Like Top Gear, that show, and a few of the countries they went to, they were the first ever film crew allowed to go there. Ever. In modern history. Since a TV was invented. First time. Like, there are gigantic parts of this world that are just completely unexplored. Fucking, especially, look at China. They have a Bigfoot sanctuary.
You know what blows my mind?
National Park.
Talking about exploration. The Edmund Fitzgerald. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, very.
1975, sank in bad weather, potentially due to one
rogue
of the
wave.
factors that could have created a rogue wave that hit it from behind, plunging it down into the sea.
In where? Where?
In Lake Superior, on the Canadian side. The families of the 29 men that were lost at sea that day, after, 5 or 6 expeditions down there, dating from the 70s into the very early 90s, requested that no further expeditions be made down to the Edmund Fitzgerald to honor and preserve their family members' final resting place.
Okay.
I understand and mourn for their losses, especially watching videos of some of the wives and sons and daughters of these 29 men. It's a terrible loss, but we have advanced so far technologically in terms of our ability to explore underwater, especially now in this day and age, 20 some odd years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we now have the ability to explore something like that without disturbing it.
It seems like a waste.
I agree.
To not be able to go down. A good portion of the men were probably ejected from the ship as water billowed in.
Sure.
They found the door to the main cabin open. Not burst open, not peeled back, but left open.
Okay.
These men went down not expecting this at all. They had their door open, ready to walk in and out of it.
Yeah.
Because of that, their bodies could be inside the ship or could be spread out along the floors.
Well, at this point, would there be anything left?
Bones.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd be curious to find, and maybe return to the families. But
give them a resting place other than the lake.
Yeah, but now there's just a little buoy monument to them on there, and they've removed the bell from the Fitzgerald and replaced it with ceremonial bell with all 29 names and their positions engraved on it.
Underwater?
Yep.
But the real bell is on land?
Yep.
Yeah, in like a museum or something, right? Yeah.
Correct. But the Edmund Fitzgerald is one of over 6,000 wrecks. It just happens to be the largest ship to ever go down in the Great Lakes. And I want to go.
I mean, you also have, 5,999 others. that probably need to be... And, that's...
But most of the others are explainable. We
really?
don't...
We still don't have an understanding of what happened to the Udman?
There's multiple theories, and especially if you combine all of them together, it creates a plausible storyline. The R.S. Anderson was 10 miles due north of the Fitzgerald and was in radio contact with them. Last thing that the captain from the Fitzgerald said is that they were taking on water, but they were holding their own. They saw them dip down below the water line, expecting to see the lights of the Fitzgerald pop back up, and they never did.
Wow.
Did the Fitzgerald run aground in shallow water, rupturing its hull, and that was where they began taking on water? Did the ship fracture from the impact, which it hit the bottom of Lake Superior at 35 miles per hour, leaving the front of the boat sitting straight up, just as it would sit on top of the lake, and the back of the boat flipped entirely upside down?
Wow.
And it's missing some 200 feet of boat that was entirely disintegrated. Whether that was on impact with the ground, or whether that happened due to the force of a rogue wave hitting it and potentially breaking it on the surface before it plunged into the depths.
Is even Lake Superior, the largest, big enough to have something like a rogue wave?
Yes. Rogue waves are very common on all of the Great Lakes.
Oh, okay.
The conditions necessary to create them, including weather, including wave matching, where you have one slower wave moving in front of a faster wave. They link up, and the faster wave joins in with the slower wave, pushing it along and creating an even bigger wave, which is what they think happened with the Fitzgerald. The Anderson encountered two very large waves. Radio ahead to the Fitzgerald that two large waves were headed in their direction. Those two waves very easily could have combined into one probably 60, 70 foot wave that could have very easily overtaken an already damaged ship.
Damn, I never knew that.
The Edmund Fitzgerald has a lot of information about how it sank, but the actual story, the reason that these 29 sailors lost their lives is not actually known to us. We don't know.
We know the most likely scenario, but we don't know for sure.
Exactly. Especially since at the time, the government and the government's post and conclusion about the sinking was it was due to negligence by the sailors and the ship's captain for leaving certain sections of the ship open, and they were able to take on water from above, which led to them sinking.
Oh, well, that's probably,
very unlikely.
Yeah.
The Fitzgerald sailed from 1956 to 1975, and it was actually supposed to be one of its last journeys.
Damn, that's crazy. That's a crazy fucking story. That is definitely something. That's a whole world that, should be explored.
I respect the family's wish to preserve their family's resting place.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But there is an entire world surrounding that wreck that one day I hope that we do get to explore before it's totally lost to us.
Well, if we're about to lose a bunch of water, it could be even easier to access.
You might be able to walk right out to it.
Yeah. That's fucking crazy. Alright, was there anything else you wanted to get into, or you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Alright, we'll save the rest for next time. Hell yeah, it's a fucking good one. Nice and long, too. Alright.
Unless you want to talk about the Ring of Fire.
What's that?
The entire, the most geologically active...
Oh, I know about the Ring of Fire, yeah.
We'll save that for next time.
Alright, until next time, everybody, have a good one. You've been lost in the dark.